Live.
Welcome everybody to our Finance Committee meeting. Today is January 14th at 6 p.m. Can I have a roll, please?
Mr. Fisher?
Here.
Mr. Dahl?
Yeah.
Ms. Kramer? Is absent. Mr. Michelson?
Present.
Does anyone want to put forth a motion to excuse Mrs. Kramer?
Motion to excuse Mrs. Kramer, or Miss Kramer, or Brittany Kramer.
Brittany.
Motion taken.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes?
We're on the agenda, sir.
Oh, put forth a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second to adopt agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda's been adopted. Minutes from last time, from December 9th meeting. Did anybody notice anything out of ordinary? If not, I put forth a motion to adopt the minutes from our last meeting.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
First, I'd like to welcome our new member to the committee. Without him today, we wouldn't be having a meeting, so we appreciate you.
Well, I think we still would have, because it would have been 2 or 3.
Two of them. Oh.
We've done it before.
Oh, yeah, you're right,
But
All
thank
right.
you.
So for discussion tonight, we have, first of all, this cell tower lease discussion that we have started, and that was sent to Finance Committee. We'll ask Mr. Pridenoff to give a rundown again for those that are not familiar, that we could discuss it.
So we spoke to, I would say, 3 or 4 vendors who were looking to get our signature to grant an easement on the property which currently has a cell tower sitting on it. The cell tower is not owned by the village. The property is owned by the village. The village has a contract with a company called American Tower. American Tower seeks to continue their relationship with us by extending by 30 years. There were other companies we spoke to with. One was Everest, one was Landmark. Landmark you probably see on most billboards when you're driving down the highway. You'll see Landmark's Landmark Dividend. The other one is Everest. They were another real estate firm. And basically, what I learned is that there's very few of the big companies like American Tower out there. I did reach out to a few others. I have not heard back from other ones yet. I was not successful in contacting them. I do have a list of them in my office. But point being that the competitive offer that American Tower was willing to grant us, namely a 3% escalation clause with a $25,000 signing bonus, that's granting us granting them the ability to expand their current site behind the fence, not encroaching on our park, was something that the best anyone else could do was essentially we would forfeit 20, 30, 40 years of our receipts, and they would give us a lump sum up front. What I then learned afterwards is that it's common practice for those companies to go ahead and turn around and sell a contract back to American Tower. So American Tower was not able to give us a better offer. I think it's still a competitive offer at several $100,000 more to the village over that same 20, 30, or 40-year period. It's significantly more money to the village over that period than anything else that we were looking at. So I recommended to extend our contract with them. Mr. Butler made sure that there was an inclusion of a phrase which essentially ensures that they don't encroach on our park. They don't encroach more east than the current location. And they made the change in the contract. Mr. Butler, from my understanding, was satisfied with the change in language, which is essentially where we are now. That's what's in the legal memo that is posted on the packet, and it's about 28 or 38 pages long of legalese and locations and what the, the terms of the contract are. But essentially, the village gets right now about $1,450 a month, 3% increase it goes annually, starts in January, and that would extend the current contract from, which I believe ends in 28 or 29, a further 30 years.
And I believe one of the positives of working with them was that we still maintain ownership over that land, where some
Correct.
others, it was more of a sale of the land or indefinite, like.
Correct. So yeah, the difference was the other companies, some of them were offering us a significantly higher amount of money, but then we would have to grant them a permanent easement, which would essentially cease our ability to control the site, even though it's still our site. Another thing just to be aware of is American Tower does offer that if they do expand, and again, they're paying us money in order for them to have the opportunity to expand, but we would get 50% of those proceeds, whatever companies they're currently looking to expand to. I think there was a request for information of which tenants are currently on the tower. My understanding is the only tenant is Verizon, and there are no other tenants on that tower. That was the email communication we received from American Tower.
And was there a discussion to add more place to put more tenants? What was that?
So there's there is a clause in the contract which we're getting an extra, I think it ends up being about $10,000 for the option to expand, and that would be that they have about 1,200 square feet. The contract says 1,200 square feet is what they're allowed to utilize in order to. If you look over there, next to the tower is a small building. That small building is essentially Verizon's operations, that whatever goes into the tower, into that, I don't know how that works, but that's Verizon's. So there would be, let's say, a T-Mobile right next to it. That would be allowable as long as it's behind the fence. So that expansion ability is in the contract, it's part of it, and we would see
getting
proceeds.
extra for that, how much?
One more time?
How much extra are we getting for that?
We're not currently getting monthly extra for that. The signing is $25,000. If they do expand, then we would get 50% of that. Meaning whatever the contract is with that tenant, we would get 50%.
So they're paying us increase for the option to expand, and then if they ultimately do expand, we get 50% of the proceeds from that tenant.
I had requested language that we're specifically informed about who the other tenants are on there. That's what prompted the response of saying it's just Verizon right now. Because I know that, one of the things when you have a tower, you can put all kinds of folks on there, whatever. And I wanted our ability to have an answer, not just now while we're in contract negotiations, but even, sometime during these 30 years, if we're asking, is there a client or customer, relations, will they respond to us at all, basically? Yeah. And so I had asked for some language on that. And there's a little bit of back and forth with their company on whether they can provide that. And they said, basically, look, it's just Verizon right now. And whenever we bring somebody in new, we can potentially tell you who that is when it comes in. But as far as I know, we can get the payment, but there isn't necessarily a guarantee that we would be informed of who the client is. But maybe that's not that big of a deal. That was my only issue with it.
Yeah.
And just a correction, it's not 50%. As I said, I realized I was confusing that with another company. It's $300 increase per tenant.
Per month?
Per month, yes.
Well, I think any increase for unused space that we don't use right now is good for the village, especially as it's not used, and we still will have full control over all the easements and everything, in the long run, should the situations change. So, I would, unless, I would make a motion to refer this to council for a final vote.
So I did push Eric to try to negotiate higher terms with them, and at least a higher bonus for starters, a signing bonus that they were offering. We tried to get them to maybe make a walking path and do different things in the park. We tried negotiating, but they did not buy our negotiations. The question is, if this offer is going to fall off the table, or as they get more desperate because their contract is running up, are we going to end up in a better place to get more money from them at that point, or is that risky that we're going to lose something?
I don't think they're necessarily going to change their position. I mean, it is, as we've learned previously, a high valued spot, as it's like the highest location in the county, I believe, if that's correct. Correct me if Or one of the highest locations?
Like maybe the highest location centrally. I'm thinking surely over on the west side, I've seen a really big tower over there, right?
like I know Witten Woods is really high up,
Yeah,
but I mean, I think that's a radio tower, but
yeah.
I know,
What I'm thinking of is, radio tower.
yeah, I think it is, we did learn, I can't remember if it's the highest in the county or just one of the highest, but it is a high value location. But with that being said, they're the only game in town, kind of. Often when you try to negotiate, if there's someone we're gonna jump to, they know everyone we're gonna jump to is just gonna sell it back to them and not giving us a better rate. So I don't think we're gonna get any better of a deal. In regards to the walking path, which I desperately would love to get finished also, I think one thing that I had proposed was potentially using some of the initial sign-on bonus and earmarking that for specifically finishing the walking path and those kind of park improvements we've been talking about for years. I would be comfortable with that as well. That way we can get that done and put the funding in place so that, we can't really move around it much longer.
There, to your question, David, I've been looking at, I was CC'd on the emails back and forth with Eric and Ron, and there was a couple places there where it did seem like they were kind of like, are you going to sign it, or are you going to sign it, kind of thing. Who knows, maybe it was because it was before Christmas and they were going to get like a signing bonus as being the individual that's handling it, or something. But there was the exchange looked like, okay, it's going to council now, and we'll let you know after it goes to council, kind of thing. So my read of it seemed like it did seem a little bit anxious for a response. But to Zach's point, I can't come up with any reason why they would be, given the situation, other than maybe it's just an individual, salesperson.
Or maybe they'll lower the offer because we're running out of time on our end.
The only other issue, and this is more of an issue for the full council, should it go to them, is I didn't see anything in there, and I didn't review it. If there's any clauses about, I don't know, with new technologies, if somebody's saying, oh, it's hurting me, and then like you have a whole lot of people saying it's hurting me or whatever, do we have any power in that kind of situation or not? Like if I don't know, if some kind of international agency comes out and says this new technology that they're using is giving everybody cancer or something, all right? Do we have power to do anything about that? I'm sure there's some agency that can. I didn't see anything like that addressing those kind of things in the contract.
I mean, I would think, granted, I have no legal information on this, but my gut instinct would be that there was something like that like the greater county, state, federal government could kind of enforce those. Like if they find out, the asphalt on the road is giving everyone cancer, like I think, I don't think it would be on Gulf Manor necessarily to fix that.
I'm with you on that. I recognize whenever there's something that says, and as part of this, you promise not to sue us for anything.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we would have standing in that case. It would have to be a citizen, because the village wasn't harmed. It would have been a citizen. But no, I hear you. I think it's very valid.
It looks good to me, but ultimately, I think we're going to be putting all of our, we have a solicitor to go through all that stuff and tell us if there's an issue.
Yeah. There's a motion on the floor.
Was not second yet.
Sorry,
you have to
what was
say?
the motion?
The motion was to refer to council.
it seems like we have a, what's that, bird in the hand. We have a good bidder. We have a good continuation of the income coming in, and there's no one else bidding against it. It seems like it's the smart financial decision to take money that we have in front of us. I understand what you're saying about holding out, but it seems like let's lock this up and move on to the next thing. And this is a continuation of funds to do the work in the park that you've been trying to get done, it sounds like. I use that park, it's fantastic. I know the tower, I know exactly how it works. I'm from IT.
Mm.
It's you got a walkie-talkie. A walkie-talkie hooks up to an antenna. This is just the antenna. They can hook up whatever they want to it. And it's a good park. It seems like let's keep the income flowing. I'm inclined to say that.
So you want to second his?
I second the motion.
There you go.
Do we need to have any discussion now that it's been seconded?
Now let's start the discussion. Yeah, I know that we tried pushing them to get more and to push the contract, but it went nowhere. So I don't know if they have their rates and this is how they work. So
Good job for pushing. You tried.
we tried. I don't know. Did he? Did you try?
I did.
I told him to try.
I did because you asked me to. I thought it was a reasonable, but of course, I'll push back. So,
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Are all in favor to move this to council?
All right.
Motion passes and will be moved to the next council meeting that will take place sometime.
Before we move on to the next item, which might be adjourning, could I just ask Eric if we could ask Rob to rescan the contract in case the full council wants to look at it? Because maybe it's just my computer.
What is this? This looks like gibberish.
Yeah, there's a couple pages where it's
I'm not sure if that's meant to be.
I don't know if it's supposed to be unreadable.
It's the location. You're talking about the
Like
what
I guess
section
to be a
talks
map?
about location?
There's a few sections. There's this under Exhibit A, parent parcel.
Yeah, I believe that's the location is what that.
There was another space in it. That might have been the only one. But I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know if
It's
that was
a-
intentionally blurred out.
No, it's a poor. The original is pretty poor.
Okay.
I have the original contract. I can probably print it out.
Yeah, just in case full council
I
wants to
think
see it.
it looks like it was probably printed and then rescanned instead of just shared. So if you want, I can
Yeah,
just share that.
I could see how people would want to be able to read the whole thing if they
Eric,
wanted.
are the doors unlocked today?
I can unlock them if they are not.
They were not when I came.
Um,
Okay. All right, then we have the following resolutions that are going to go to council, and we have to give our blessings, our nays or yays on it. Resolution 2025-1. Eric, do you have information on this?
1 second.
You guys just logged into the portal?
So if you were to go
Council
to,
website.
if you go to golfmanor.gov, there's a banner at the top of like scrolling icons or pictures. One of them goes to like council minutes and documents and stuff. And so everything for all the meetings, all the legislation, all the memos, all the agendas and everything can be found there.
So yeah, I can give you an explanation of what we're looking at first. Resolution 2025-1 is a resolution requesting county auditor make tax advances during the year 2025, really.
Yeah, well, I was
I
gonna
don't
ask
know
that.
why it says 23, pursuant to ORC 32134. So essentially, it just allows me to request money from the county to be sent to us early. We can obviously ask Rob to update that year. It might mean to say the tax year 24 and 23 was just a copy from last year. I don't think this has gone 2
Did we
years
not
without us
get to
noticing.
that? Oh, I
We
guess.
I'm saying because we paid 24 taxes in 25, so it could be that just was 1 year and it was copied. I don't know. But the point is, This just allows me to make that request to the auditor, that if we are running low on funds, which thankfully we are not, but this is a housekeeping measure
Even,
that.
even if not, we want to be able to make the interest.
That's true. What I understood when I first started this job from previous occupants is that it generally does not send a positive message if we're requesting money early, before they've received it. Because again, they're currently collecting that money, but they don't send those out until March. So there are significant funds that they may not have received yet. Likelihood is that they have, but I don't work for the county, so I can't speak for them. But yes, if we make that request, we absolutely could have them advance the funds before they're actually collected. This allows me to make that request.
So this is just, it's not that we're requesting now, it's just if we need it, we will request.
Correct.
Okay.
So just need a motion to recommend. And then second, and perhaps we can have discussion there.
I'll move to recommend this to full council. Resolution 2025-1.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, resolution 2025-1 will be moved to council for tonight.
Okay.
2025-2 is a resolution. This was a conversation we already had, no?
Yes, it was last year, but this is now doing it again for this year. We'll probably end up doing this every year, essentially because of the fire levy fund always runs three months behind. And so the general fund has to loan the money to the fire levy in order for the fire levy to stay solvent. Okay, that's the main piece. It's also the DEA fund. I'm requesting to advance $42,500 to the DEA fund. That allows that fund to stay solvent as long as we are not receiving funds from the DEA.
Why does the DEA need extra funds?
It's not that it needs extra funds, it's that it comes in spurts and bursts and trickles and with no rhyme or reason. At the end of the year, within the last week of 2024, we received like $30,000, $22,000, which is phenomenal. We were in the black already before that, so we start with a good balance. But we may not see funds from that account for three to 6 months, which is what happened in 24, which is why we made this advance. So this just puts it on the books that I can make that change. I don't have to make the advance, but again, this authorizes me to make that advance.
Is there anything funded out of the DEA fund that can't be just funded directly out of the general fund?
I mean, technically technically the K-9 is funded out of the DEA fund. It's a bit of an accounting nightmare for me to have to move him to the general fund. And then once the money comes into the DEA fund, it's already been paid. Whereas if we're doing the accounting out of the DEA fund and we're loaning the money from the general fund, then once the money comes in, it just goes back to the general fund. And then the accounting is clean.
Are we, the DEA fund, the fire levy is, we know what we're gonna get for the year.
Correct, and we know we will receive that in March or April.
Yeah, the DEA fund, I hear what you're saying and I totally understand it. And I'm just kind of conflicted because I know with the DEA fund, it's kind of unknown amounts at unknown times.
Correct.
And not necessarily forever. There is a time limit on when funds will be received based off of as long as we participate in the DEA program.
Correct.
And so the one hesitation I have, and maybe you can ease this hesitation just by more information, is just that I don't want to like move, because once funds are in the DEA fund, we can't move it out to other things. And so I'm just worried it's going to get tied up.
This is different. This is not moving money into the DEA fund. This is lending money to the DEA fund, just as we did with Sundance last year, that once the money comes back to the DEA, this is just an advance.
Yep. And what's our confidence level that the DEA fund will match that?
42,500, absolutely. Even in COVID, our worst year, we made $67,000.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not concerned about that.
Okay.
I haven't done the report yet, but for year 2024, it made over 186,000.
that last 2 weeks of the year, right? It was crazy. It was all of a sudden massive amounts of,
October, November, December, yeah, there was a
Yeah.
lot.
it was great.
I mean, if that's the case, that definitely, eases my just concern.
What's the
Just-
balance now?
I just don't know
in the
what's
deal?
coming in and out.
It's about $20,000. That gets us through about a month and a half of expenses. The big issue is we have a car payment that comes out of that account, which is $22,000. And it's a one-time annual payment, but that wipes out any other money that would otherwise go to salaries in that account.
Oh, and Darren, just so you know, and for anyone that's watching at home, in case you don't know what the DEA fund is, we have an officer at the Gulf Manor Police Department who is permanently assigned to a task force at the DEA, and any sort of cases that he's involved with, any sort of seizures, we get a portion of those funds, and that goes into the DEA fund, and it funds various police-specific activities.
Highly restrictive, what we can and cannot do with that money, as the chief would tell you. We have a pretty thick book of guidelines that we receive. So this is one way of making sure to keep those funds separate, but also not putting undue stress on the general fund and then making an accounting kind of circle, trying to figure out how to get money back into the general fund if the general fund is fronting the money. This is the easiest way to do it, in my opinion. Any other questions?
Make a motion to refer to the full council, resolution 2025-2.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Resolution 2025-2 should be put on the agenda for full council.
Okay.
All right, 2025-3 is a rollover, I think, from last year.
I think the description indicates it's meant to be done this year.
Is the text, it looks like
The resolution,
the summary of it is the last time this was done was December 2023. Is that correct?
I believe this was done in '24, was it not?
Which legislation is this?
This is the resolution for providing for the employment and compensation of legal counsel for the village.
Well, it's just a summary. It doesn't give the actual year in the language of the resolution, but in like the summary,
But
the
we
memo
had-
summary.
We did it, my understanding is, and it says it in the legislative memo as well, that we did it in December. Last time we did it was December of 2023.
Oh, and it would have been December
Yeah.
2020. Okay, like we're a month behind.
Correct.
Got it.
It's not called for to be done, like, apparently in the charter, it calls for it to be done at the first meeting in January, but for whatever reason, we did it early last year. I think it was part of that switch over from Donald and Donald to Butler.
Yeah.
We did have somebody, so we did it early.
So the one question I have on the resolution, which the mayor or, I was looking at your name tag, I was gonna say, not Mr. Brittenhoff, might be able to answer, is I know there was discussion over, can I say this in full count, in open meeting?
I was planning on calling an executive session at full council tonight. We could call it here, because it does have to do with matters of an employee and salary.
Yeah,
Speak
that-
more freely than.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say,
so hold on.
yeah, there was just discussions around this topic, and I just wanted to make sure everyone's on the same page and that when it hopefully eventually goes to full council, everyone will be on the same page.
Right.
And there
Yeah,
won't be conflict about it.
Maybe at the end of, given the likelihood that we're not gonna have full council tonight, maybe at the end of finance, we could have an executive session and I could bring everyone up to date on.
Yeah. Darren, you're getting the full experience, executive session in your first meeting, whoa. It's- Well, you could technically run in the fall.
I want to be a happy household.
Yeah. All right.
No,
All right,
So
so
should
this is
we-
another housekeeping item that will go to full council. I don't know if we have to give our blessing to it.
I think we can refer it to full council.
Motion to
And-
refer 2025-3 to full council.
Second.
All those in favor? The next resolution is 2025-4, as our discussion was earlier about American Towers, and we did.
Yeah, we did
go ahead and
refer.
There is another item that was kind of spoken about that was not on the agenda. I want to bring it up. Was a raise given to Ron, administrator. Did we have a discussion about that in the past?
I don't believe we've had that discussion in finance. Granted, I haven't been on executive committee for a couple months now, where typically that has been discussed in executive.
So I believe that executive gave their blessing for a standard raise, and it never went anywhere after that.
Standard of 3%.
I have to double check with Brittany, and but somewhere it got stuck. I don't know where it's holding right now.
So I mean, if that's the case, I mean, I'm happy to discuss it, but unless we have, the clear information, I don't know if it's worth the discussion right
Let's ask the
now.
mayor. Do
Sorry.
you have information? What was Brittany's idea regarding a raise for the administrator? Did she say a 3 or a 6? Do you remember?
I do not recall what that was. I know that there was discussion around that there was a previous understanding that there was bands and it was just it was built in by whatever the performance review was. But then when it came right down to it, the information was, we'll know that it was never really that way. I'm thinking it had to have been in the minutes someplace what the, what
Do you
it was.
remember anything?
I was not present for any of those discussions.
But my recollection was that that when that was decided, it was kind of like, it's just formally, it's got to go through finance. But that I thought it was determined, I thought the number was determined that they were recommending over to you guys. That was my.
Nothing, I haven't received anything from them, so I don't know. I mean, I would ask, I don't know, just ask executive to forward that over, if we can inform the executive chair to send that over.
Executive had been working on performance measures, new performance measures moving forward, but that has nothing to do with his previous reviews. This would be for, the next village administrator, or like whenever we finish those, it's for whoever's in place at that time. It doesn't have anything to do with this previous review. You can't come up with new measures and then retroactively. So.
Oh, yeah, well, I just, if we're gonna be recommending to council, what the raise would be, I just want to know what their conclusion was.
Absolutely. I wasn't clear that what I was trying to clarify was if there was any perceived delay, like, why haven't we done this? And it's like, what we were delayed on didn't have anything to do with his raise.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah,
just asking her to send it so that we have something to
Right.
discuss.
Right.
So the two options would be a 3% or a 6%. Eric, the budget could handle it
When it,
for last year, 24.
so for 24,
Did he get anything in 24?
he did not receive an increase in 24 from my recollection. No, he did not receive an increase in 24. There was a 3%, there was a 3% increase in 24 that was included in the budget. But being that we're no longer in budget year 24, even the increase that we put in for 25 would have to include whatever interest and whatever back pay.
We're not doing back pay. We
No.
talked about that already with other employees. If it wasn't passed, it wasn't passed. We're not retroactively giving people more money because.
Okay, I mean, that maybe, I know that in previous councils, retro pay was granted. And I would, of course, encourage, I haven't looked closely at the contract, right? But whatever Mr. Hurt's contract says, I would encourage that we're not overlooking something, which may include an obligation for increase and any interest that would be due or retroactive pay. I don't know what.
If
what's in it, so
there's contractual obligation, I don't know what we need to discuss in finance. It's contractual obligation, the village has to fulfill it. But if we're considering a increase outside of the contractual obligation,
I'm sorry.
I don't want to go back and do retroactive.
I
Say,
believe
actually,
the
we're gonna give
percentage. I believe it's the percentage is what the discussion is, right? Whether there's retroactive pay or not, I believe is contractually obligated. But I'm saying the percentage does make a difference. If council decides we want to give him a 6% raise and that's retroactive, well, that much is not in the budget, right? So I would have to give you a more specific estimation of what that number is. If it's a 3%, I can tell you, yes, that is certainly available in the budget.
Okay.
Even retroactive, even with interest and all of that.
The number had already been determined, whatever it is.
So whatever it
I
is,
can look
right.
at it, yeah. Or the number had already been recommended to finance. I'm just trying to figure out what that was.
Well, I'll move to table this discussion until we receive more information on what the actual numbers are, whether from executive or the administration.
And you're saying what the number recommended was, that's what you're looking for?
Well, I just need the full information. Right now, it's a theoretical discussion over a maybe or maybe not raise with, I don't know what the number is that's been discussed or.
Yeah, is it 3% or?
So the first question that we need to clarify is what was the number that was recommended from executive to finance? Am I understanding your question?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that. Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to table the discussion until we have that information and can make an informed recommendation.
So what I would put forth a motion to allow the 3%.
There's already a motion on the table though, so you'd have to
It was
wait for
not
a second.
yet. Motion died. I
Come on,
would put
Darren.
forth a motion.
Back me up.
It's too much.
I would like to put forth a motion that at least the 3% that we could handle should get forward and taken care of as soon as possible. And then when we do get a clarity from the chair of executive, we could either leave it there if that was recommendation, or if we went up to 6%, have a conversation how we're gonna deal with that. But for right now, let's at least put something in, get that check processed.
Until
What was the recommendation? I'm sorry.
A 3% increase right now.
going forward.
Let's do it for going forward. At least there's something happening right away for last year. And then we'll have a discussion and find out what was the recommendation from executive, the final decision from executive. And we'll work with that to figure out if we're gonna go back, forward, and what we're gonna do.
I second that motion.
There you go. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. A motion
So then
to,
for the notes, I have a motion by Mr. Fisher to recommend a 3% increase for administrator to the full council.
regardless of regardless of what the final is gonna be from executive, to at least have that process now. And if it's more, then we'll deal with that at the next council.
So
We're just recommending
a 3%
3%.
increase for the administrator, which should be included in the final number from executive, meaning executive says 5%, you said
Then we're-
3%, that's not 8%, this
just-
is 3% and that would
It's
be
only gonna be
2%. Okay, I'm understanding.
You will give what we know for sure. There's no argument on you're gonna get right now. And that we're not 100% sure, that extra will.
Be under
confirm it.
discussion.
You get 3% at least.
Okay,
Okay, we have a motion to go into executive session for matters of compensation and personnel.
You just don't get to hear anything good, Lou.
This is like deja vu all over.
Just come sit down.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I put forth a motion to allow Eric to please stay.
And the mayor.
And the mayor.
Am I coming back with anything?
Most likely not.
Most likely.
What I'm gonna ask is that we'll
Let me just end
go
the stream.
live for the evidence that we don't have quorum, and then we'll say after